everyone. Welcome to another episode of the QubicaAMF Tech Tip Podcast. This is a weekly podcast where we take you on a journey through the fascinating world of bowling technology and beyond. And as always, I am your host, Orly. And as always, we have a guest on with us today, and we have returning guest, one of my favorite people to come on the show, Max Training Specialist David J. David J., welcome back to the show.
Hey, Orly. Great to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, anytime. David, today what we wanted to talk about was, sometimes I know when I was in a bowling center, some stuff was set up for me. And then once it came time to, add some things to some of the buttons for the menu, I was kind of like, oh no, I'm a little lost. So today I want to see if you could kind of cover, modifiers and maybe just kind of give an overview on some things that people might forget how to do or something that they might have trouble doing.
Absolutely. Happy to. Just to start with, one of the things that we see a lot is people can remember how to make a price key, and they'll have their price key, and then they'll want to add some flavor to their soda or a slushie or another topping to a pizza, and they just can't remember where to go and how to add it and how to make it work. So I want to just go over today just a little bit of the process and some of the things that some of the pitfalls and trips that can elude people. So when we're talking about modifiers, obviously we will have already created our price key. And for our example today, I'm just going to use a basic hamburger because that's something that we can add multiple modifiers to. Okay. So we've created our hamburger price key, and then we want to add all of those extras that we offer to that hamburger. So we'll go into our setup and our POS setup and modifiers. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a modifier group. We create that modifier group for what those modifiers specifically are going to be. So in this case, since we're doing hamburger, let's start with what kind of bun this hamburger is going to be on. Maybe we offer a wheat bun and a white bun and maybe some sort of gluten-free option. So we make a modifier group that would be hamburger bun when we name it. And then we would move over and add those specific modifiers to that modifier group. Now's where people struggle and they say, well, how do I get that modifier group linked to that price key? How do I make it show up? I made it. And right there at the top of the screen next to where it says modifiers, it says price keys. When you click on that, that's where you can add the price keys and link a price key to that specific modifier group. And that takes you, when you click on price keys, it takes you right to your department structure, find the appropriate price key and link it. And then the next step would be, do I want to make that modifier group automatic? So when I click on that hamburger price key, does that modifier group automatically pop up on the screen? That's the other thing that people miss is they've linked the modifier group, but it doesn't automatically appear. You have to have another step in the POS. So we can click on that price key, change it to automatic, and now it will automatically appear. So we've got our bun choice. Now, how does our hamburger come? Well, likely it either comes dressed or it comes plain, and we are adding all of the condiments to it. In this case, let's just say that it comes plain and we want to add those condiments. We would create another modifier group, name it specifically, hamburger condiments or whatever you happen to choose. And then we go through that same process again, adding the specific modifiers that you want to that modifier group. And then once we have all the modifiers listed, we go ahead and link that group again to that same hamburger price key. The next thing, maybe we have cheese as an option. We would make a separate modifier group for cheese. So you see the process, it's a build. We create the basic price key, and then we can add as many modifier groups as we want to that specific price key. Once we have all those groups of modifiers, I always like to go into the POS and select that price key, in this case hamburger, and make sure that the order that those modifier groups appear is the order of the conversation that I want to have with that guest. In the case of a hamburger, what's our order of conversation? What's our order of preparation? How do we want it to show up on the ticket when it goes back to the kitchen? So maybe as we were in our head creating these modifier groups, typically we start with in our head and we make how does it come? We make the condiments first, and then we make the cheese, and then we make the bun, and then we say, oh, maybe we want to have a heat check here, and how do I want this done? So we make these modifier groups and maybe not link them to the price key in the order that we want them to show up, and we can go in and change that very easily. Back in the modifier setup, there's a button at the bottom of the modifier setup that says ordering. And you can just click on the ordering button. It takes you to the list of all of your price keys and the associated modifier groups you have. You go down and find that hamburger, click on it, and then you can change the order that the groups appear. Those are the basic things that you should always consider when you're talking about adding modifiers and adding modifier groups. There's multiple ways to use them. You can be as detailed as you want, like I just outlined, with 3 or 4 different modifier groups for that one item. Or you could just make a modifier group for all of your hamburgers and include all of the options that you could have for all of your hamburgers in one modifier group. That's not
you
not
never
a
know what
terrible
somebody's
thing.
going to want on a burger. You might not think they're going to want it on a chicken sandwich, but you just never know.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And just remember that these modifiers are staff facing. So as long as your staff is comfortable with the way you use them and the way they're set up, that's really what it's all about here in that setup. One side note I would like to add is when we're building these modifiers, again, they are not customer facing when we're just talking about Conqueror POS. But if you are considering going forward and maybe having Conqueror Web or Conqueror Kiosk, the consideration needs to be that your modifiers become customer facing, and then the beauty is in the details and having them detailed out so that customers understand them.
Yeah.
Just two different perspectives.
Yeah, and anyone that's questioning, like, why is this so important? Why can't I just type it in the box? Well, there's a couple of reasons, in my opinion. One, number one reason is inventory. If you're, you want to make sure that you're getting that stuff all marked off if you're selling it. Another thing is just pricing. If you charge for extra tomatoes or extra cheese and somebody's just writing in extra cheese because it's easier for them to type it in, you're losing money. And
Absolutely.
And another thing is just make sure it's done right so your staff in the kitchen is getting the correct order. Because I don't know if you've ever worked with a kitchen staff, but sometimes they're not too happy when something's not rung up right and they mess it up.
Exactly. And when you're talking about preparation in the kitchen, there's an order for preparation also.
Yeah.
And how that ticket appears in the kitchen becomes very important. So this being consistent and having everybody do it the exact same way for it to get to the kitchen and then be delivered, super important.
Yeah. And even like with your reporting, that all pops up. If you have a button for cheese, it's going to show how many slices of, American cheese you sold. So that way you're able, again, to inventory it or just to kind of see, hey, are we selling this much cheese, this kind of cheese? Are we not selling this much kind of cheese? Do we need to keep ordering it? So yeah, it's all important to have those buttons set in there correctly.
Absolutely.
Well, David, I appreciate you coming on the show today to help with that one. Again, that's something I came across once where I built a new burger and I'm like, oh, wow, I need to put all the extra stuff in here, but how do I do it? And again, it was one of those things where if you weren't linking it up right, it wasn't going to show up and it could be a little confusing. But again, it's not too hard there. You heard David go over how to do that. And if you're new to the show, make sure you're going back and listening to other shows because just like today, there's so many shows that will help you out with little small tips with something that you might just be having a little bit of trouble with. And make sure to share the show with your friends, your colleagues, your staff, and give us a follow on social media and subscribe here. And we will talk to everyone soon. Thanks again, David.
Thank you.